Good afternoon. Welcome to our next edition of Facebook Live. Today is Tuesday, May the 19th, 2020, and I am your friendly neighborhood craniosacral therapist, Jennifer Pillow-White, with Michigan Associates of Acupuncture and Integrative Medicine. These are my two beautiful assistants for today.
Hi.
Hi. Who's this? Who are you? You don't know your name? What's your name?
You do know your name, Christian.
Oh, she knows your name. This is my son, Christian. And what is your name, beautiful?
I'm Annabelle.
This is Annabelle. These are my wonderful little super duper human beings. How old are you guys?
7.
7-year-old twins. We are hanging out at home just like all of you, trying to make sense of all this stuff. Hi, Jordan. Hi there. What we were going to talk about today is talk a little bit about some principles or some concepts to think about in regards to helping our kids through difficult times. One of the things that I do in practice, my practice has evolved a lot over the years. And where when I first began about 18 years ago, I started with a predominantly all adult practice. But as my practice evolved, I began shifting to more of a pediatric practice. So now I would say probably my practice is about 40% children, which is fantastic. I love it. Kids are amazing and fun and exciting. And definitely since motherhood came my way 7 years ago, my practice has definitely evolved even quicker. So some of the things I see in practice are working with some different dysfunction and issues and such, like breastfeeding issues and colic and things like that for amongst kids. Sometimes can be used for autism and ADHD, but also probably one of the leading things nowadays is anxiety and stress. We don't think of our kids having anxiety and stress, but you know what? World is pretty crazy nowadays, not just with COVID-19. And we have to realize the emotional life of our kids, is a lot more complex than just feeling happy or sad. So what we're going to talk a little bit about is how do kids cope with certain feelings that they have, and how do they not cope at the same time? We've worked on this point. Christian. You can lay back. Go ahead. Go ahead and lay back. I'm just going to talk for a moment or two. One of the things, we work on is trying to help our children to grow and evolve, as they're going from infancy up. And, in the beginning stages, it's, about being happy and being sad and all of these feelings that, the simple feelings. But then those feelings become more and more complex, as they start to understand them and grow. Things like frustration and anxiety and worry and being, agitated and such like that. It's one thing for them to feel it. The other piece is for them to be able to articulate it and be able to figure out ways to handle it. And that comes much later. And our emotional health amongst children is an evolving, growing thing. And it is largely to do, has a lot of influence by what we model for our children. And of course, we're stressed right now, in what's going on in our personal lives and globally. And to think that our children aren't feeling that is just, it's not plausible. I mean, they're completely feeling it all. They just may not understand it. They may not be able to use the words to describe what they're feeling, either themselves or what they're feeling off of us. Obviously, my son is bored. One of the things I talk about in practice when I'm working with children who might be a little bit more, agitated or anxious is I will suggest to my parents many times to do various things that we do in practice with the kids, but also to suggest them checking in with themselves, them as the parents. I often say that happy mom or happy parent equals happy child, okay? Because again, if you have some deep, feelings that you're not necessarily able to come to grips with, your child's going to be feeling it too, so it's a dual thing. We both, parent and child need to work on it together. So there's that piece. So I would recommend some of the things that I would talk about today for our kids to even look at for our own selves. Craniosacral therapy is sublime in regards to down-regulating the nervous system. I recommend it all the time with my adults, but definitely for my kids, just to bring the system down, to calm them down, okay? So here are a couple things to look at. One of the things is in regards to articulation, to articulate what their feeling is. All right, things I really encourage to do with my kids is to talk. Now, I'm a talker, all right? I talk my feelings out. I've always done that my entire life. My kids aren't, oddly enough. They are, sassy Scorpios. They internalize and kind of, mull things over in their head a lot. So getting them to spill the beans is not always so easy. So what we do is we do journaling, we do drawing pictures and such. Another thing that we've done, us as a family is, it doesn't have to be anything like this, but I thought it's been really a great thing for us, is we do these emotion flashcards. And it's this silly artist who does faces in vegetables, and it's just kind of funny. But it's just another way of just kind of saying, okay, what do you see? What do you think that this pepper is feeling? Is this pepper bored? Is it joyful? Is it anxious? And then we talk about it, and this is, when do you ever feel anxious? So, and then there's all sorts of other silly pictures. They're just really cute. But it really, whatever, trying to find, looking through magazines and talking to them, saying, what do you think that this child or this person or this whatever is feeling? And then trying to journal, kind of help them find their words and if the complexity of the feelings that they're feeling. Many times when children are feeling anxious or feeling a lot, they will comment on that they have a stomach ache. All right. It took a long time for me to figure out that the stomach ache many times meant they just had butterflies or worry in their stomach. And so I, would recommend just kind of sitting and doing an abdominal massage for your child. That can be really helpful. Sometimes, that will also equal, delayed bowels. So doing an abdominal massage can be really helpful. The way to do that is to massage the abdomen in a clockwise fashion. So you're going to go around and around. It was really, really helpful for my children during anxious times, as well as when they were babies, when they had a lot of colic and gas and such. So that would be a good suggestion. Another thing I would recommend for children is that, now in this day and age, we don't really have our kids outside as much as I used to. I would get up in the morning, my mom would open the door and she'd say, go and play, go, don't come back until later or dinner time. And I would be outside all day long and I would get filthy, right? And so kids don't do that anymore. First of all, we don't feel safe having our kids be out and about trouncing around the neighborhood on their own for hours on end. I mean, it isn't a safe thing to do. So now there's some limitation there, and video games and TV and tablets and all these other things are enticing kids to stay in and play and not go outside. My kids are very much homebodies. Yeah, it does take a little.
I like going outside.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that. But they do take a little extra incentive at times to get them outside because they do like doing a lot of their Legos and make-believe things at home. But once they're outside, they're great. They're great little farm hands on my pillow farm here at the house. But getting them outside is not just about, getting away from tablets. I mean, tablets is a big thing. All the EMF coming off of our televisions, and off of our tablets and electronic devices and such like that, it's draining on all of us. We talked about that a few episodes back when we talked about the grounding video. It's extremely draining to our energetic fields, and it's not good for our immunity and our psyche. And that's really what childhood is, largely about now, is doing a lot of TVs and tablets. So getting them outside in contact with the earth and the dirt is really, really effective for the same reason it is for us. Get them outside shoeless. Let them play in the grass. Let them go out and play in the dirt. Get their hands in the dirt. It stimulates their immunity. It stimulates their connection with the earth and help to neutralize their energetic field. That's a really helpful piece. Also, the vitamin D that we get from sunshine is extremely mood elevating. So that would really help with anxiety for any of us. So that's highly, highly encouraging. And the exercise piece, you know that all of us feel better with exercise. We as Americans don't exercise as much as we really should, and that includes our kids. So getting them to do more physical activity is a really helpful piece. And whether that, I know that organized sports are kind of nicked right now, but you can do them yourself. Have your own gym class. My sister-in-law is a gym a phys ed instructor, and she sends us all sorts of wonderful ideas all the time, which is really helpful for us to make not only gym and exercise fun, but to also just give us different ideas. But there's also things on Pinterest, and there's things on Facebook, that could really constantly be mixing things up. That's so exercise, and that exercise leads to better sleep habits. Encouraging good sleep habits is good for all of us. And right now, while we have a different routine, it's easy to make bedtimes later, and our whole schedule to be up, on its head. Schedule is important to our children, including sleep. All of us do better with that. And then I'm going to lead on to the last two pieces, which is where I need to have my dutiful assistance. One of the things that can be really, and here she comes, she leaps on the table. So they are on my mama table, as we call it. So one of the things that can be really helpful for all of us, not just our kids, is doing deep touch pressure, where you're actually applying heavy pressure, kind of like a massage, but it's not the stroking piece. It's more of a compression. This pressure in compressing the muscles and the bones and the joints, it helps to stimulate serotonin release by our body. Serotonin we talked about a few times in the past, in our previous episodes, where we talked about serotonin being like the feel-good emotional piece of our neurotransmitters and our hormones. And the more serotonin you have in your system, the better you kind of feel emotionally. Also, that's one of the key neurotransmitters. One of the key neurotransmitters that psychopharmacology is after in regards to balancing or enhancing serotonin in our body to help with antidepressant, to be an antidepressant and to be anti-anxiety. So how do you do that? Who's going to be my massage assistant partner? Christian. Okay, perfect. This is easy. This isn't, there's no rocket science to this. You got your willing partner here, and all you're doing is you're doing, direct pressure on the muscles. And friend, my partner here is 7 years old, so I'm using discretion. So I'm not using, really, painful, heavy pressure. But I'm just kind of pressing down here on his legs. Is that okay, Christian? Yeah.
You're making me fall asleep.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm just compressing on his thighs. I can compress on his chest. Okay, if his arms were up, if we were completely laying, compress on his arms. And then you can also do where you take the joints and you kind of compress them together. So compressing the ankle, compress the knee, might be into a tickle zone, compressing the hip, and such. And, so I'm not stroking when I'm doing this, it's just firm pressure, okay, within reason, all right? If you have a large, more like a teenager or, big kid like us, subject, you could use a little more firm pressure, but the amount of pressure I'm using is probably 5 pounds. It's not much, but enough to kind of compress those joints and those tissues to help enhance a serotonin release. And that feels good. And not only would you do this on them laying prone, you would also have them supine, so rolling over onto their back. And you could do the exact same thing. You can do it with them sitting, whatever works, right? So that's one of them. And then the other piece I would suggest would be doing weighted blankets. Where's my beautiful assistant? Here she comes. We are big fans of weighted blankets in our house. Oh my, you brought everything here. So
I need my pillow.
a weighted blanket is literally that. It's a weighted blanket. It's a heavy blanket that has usually glass beads sewn right into it, where they're in the individual compartments, so they don't move around too much, and they stay kind of uniform through the whole thing. And the premise of a weighted blanket is just like the deep tissue pressure that, like I just mentioned, that it's an occupational therapy approach. But with the blanket, it's you sleep with it, or rest with it, and you lay with it on you, and it keeps steady low pressure overnight. And with that steady low pressure, it stimulates the serotonin release, which is not only relaxing and reduces anxiety, but it also helps sleep. So that's a really helpful thing. We started off with the weighted blankets with the kids, and now I too have one. This blue one's mine. They're different weights, all right? So who's coming up here? Come on, we don't need to have the whole bedding up here. Come on up, climb up, Annabelle.
No, she wants to.
Climb up, climb up, climb up.
I'm having my whole bed in here.
Climb up, you can have, what do we do with Yellow? Oh, here's Yellow Cat. Take Yellow Cat, all right? So Annie and Christian's weighted blanket is smaller. It's about a third of the size of mine. The general rule of thumb for it is that you choose the weight based on the weight of the person. So the rule of thumb is you go 10% of the body weight plus 1 pound. So my kids are 50 pounds, so they have a 6-pound pillow, a 6-pound blanket. I'm much bigger than that. My blanket weighs a lot more than that. All right, not telling you how much. So, but it's great. Hey guys, can you talk about a little bit what your blankets are like?
Heavy.
They're heavy.
And I like them.
You like them? Why do you like them?
The blankets.
Because they're blankets, but they're not like any of the other blankets you have.
Heavy.
They're heavy. Are they comfortable?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you feel like you sleep any different with them?
I have no idea.
Christian, how do you
just.
do you feel like you sleep any different with them?
No. I'm just.
I've noticed that Christian definitely has slept better since we've gotten them. Christian has had a long history of difficulty sleeping, and I would say since using the blanket, it has really, really helped him. So I would suggest looking into them. I mean, I got ours on Amazon. They're not expensive compared to what they used to be. When they first started becoming more of a thing, you would have to get one for $100+. The kids' ones cost probably $30. Mine, maybe $40. It really wasn't bad. And the key is you want to make sure you can find one that's washable or has a washable cover, because they're heavy. Running them regularly through a washing machine might be difficult. We generally lay ours on top of a sheet or a blanket, so it's not necessarily even touching skin. So there you go. I would recommend that immensely. It's been a game changer for us in our house. And then lastly, again, I'm not a naturopath or a licensed doctor, so I can't make nutritional advice. There are people that take an immense amount of training to be able to make suggestions for children especially, but for all of us, for different things to add vitamin-wise that could help. So I'm not going to make any suggestion in regards to homeopathy or nutrition, but one thing I will suggest is something that is very innocent and simple, and that is Bach flower remedies. Bach flowers were developed by Edward Bach, I think in the 20s or 30s. And he found that these are flower essences. These are literally essences or aspects of flowers or parts of flowers that have been used in a very dilute solution to help deal with different emotional states. The most simple of them is Rescue Remedy. It's a blend of a few different flower essences that help to reduce stress and anxiety. and it's kind of used as needed, you know, can be really helpful. But there's a whole line that probably, I don't even really know, maybe 30, 40 different flower essences that could be available that you can, you know, based on the complaints or the symptoms that you or your child are having, you can determine which one would be most ideal. The book that I've used, you know, over and over again with my children is Bach Flower Remedies for Children by Barbara Mazzarella. If you can find that, I don't know if I can get that. It's a really, really great book. And it talks solely on how some of these essences can be really effective for children. This one is, or any of the others I found, are all really mostly for adult practice. But these are really, really geared on the concerns that children have. And I find it to be so helpful. And one of the times I will do is I'll put a few drops of this in the kids' water in the morning, or really at the time it needed, and they sip on it throughout the day. And there's no flavor to it. They, you know, they don't ever even know it's there. They don't complain about it at all. But I really find it to be helpful in regards to taking the edge off on times when we're really noticing some anxiety or stress in our house. So I would really strongly suggest you to look into it. If you want to ask me more specific questions, please, you know, reach out to me. But I think Bach flowers are a great tool to have for any parent to help their children through these times as well as any. And they're safe. They're just literally diluted aspects of flowers. Very, very, very safe. Where when you're looking at homeopathy and nutrition and vitamins, you have to be so much more specific, and there's hundreds and thousands of different remedies that could be appropriate for them. This is a little bit more manageable.
And now I sleep.
All right, so that is really what I have to share. You know, when we get back into the office, you know, acupuncture, craniosacral therapy are sublime for working with anxiety, and, you know, not just for us, but for our children. But until then, you have some tools, hopefully, to look at to work with, you know, working with this with your child. And, you know, it's also to remember what's happening right now, this too shall pass. And, you know, and all of our households are going through it. So reaching out to others and just pleading your, pleading your emotions and pleading what you're feeling and honoring what you're feeling is good, and it's normal. And in due time, we will all be back together again. And I look forward to being able to see you again and be able to work with you again. So if there's anything that you need from me or from my colleagues, please don't hesitate to call us. Our office number is 248-737-7126. And I hope you stay safe, you stay healthy, and you stay snuggly. Thanks. Say bye, guys.
Bye.
Christian's sleeping.
Hmm.